What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting here with Cameron Selby, and we're doing possibly one of my most anticipated videos of the year, the season predictions. We do not talk about this prior. It's one of the things that we do separately, and then we come together and we talk about what teams we think are going to do well. Last year, we had a couple of big disagreements. We thought the Jets were going to do well. Remember that? And then I thought Cleveland was going to maybe be able to win 10 games. That was incorrect. But, we've actually been pretty good at predicting these things throughout our years. So hopefully we can continue that.
And also last year we had a lot of similarities with how it went. We picked the same Super Bowl, Kansas City versus Detroit. Obviously that didn't happen, but that looked pretty damn good for the majority of the season until kind of Detroit fell apart at the end. And then, again, not too many differences in playoff teams. I think, actually, we have more disagreements this year, so it'll be fun to get into.
Sure. Yeah. The only time we actually get to see each other's records is when we're inputting records, so it's all like the last second. But a lot of these things we're going to have differences on and agreements on, of course. Let's start off with the AFC East. AFC East is it's an interesting conversation because I think that obviously it's dominated at the top, but if you just talk about second place and then changing of the guard again, New England is the team that kind of is interesting when it comes to like this group, because I think they're a dark horse playoff candidate. They have looked to improve everywhere offensively. They've added Will Campbell and Jared Wilson to their offensive line, Travion Henderson, Kyle Williams. Drake May is in for a big second year, and Arthur Smith is an absolute stud as a coach. Arthur Smith. Mike Vrabel. Yeah. Jesus Christ almighty, what am I saying? They kind of look alike, I guess. But Mike Vrabel, Jesus, is an absolute stud as a coach, and their defense is going to be strong. They have the 30th ranked schedule. I think they're a very interesting team to talk about.
Yeah, there's no difference in our rank of how we basically view this division positioning out. I mean, we think two teams will be stuck at the bottom. New England is a fringe playoff team, whether or not they get in on a tiebreaker or record, and then Buffalo kind of clear cut. As long as Josh Allen's healthy, they're probably going to run away with the division. I believe they're the biggest, biggest favorite to win the division among all 8 divisions right now. So, pretty self-explanatory with this division, give or take a couple of wins and losses to the second through fourth place teams.
Yeah, I think that we need to just kind of talk about the bottom 2 real quick, because Buffalo we're going to talk about a little bit later too. Buffalo is returning MVP Josh Allen, and they've done well even with what we thought was a depleted roster last year. But when you look at Miami's roster is gross right now. They're kind of falling apart, and 7.5 win total feels really high. We both have them losing way more games than that. No confidence in this team. Just could be Mike McDaniels last year. You've got a situation where Tua could retire. Your offensive line is scary. Jonas Savaianea is starting at left guard. Your left tackle is second year Patrick Paul, who had a 44.9 grade last year. HN has a soft tissue injury already. Secondary is absolutely cooked. They have nothing. Bradley Chubb coming off injury. Tyreek is a trade candidate. I just can't play in the cold. Can I say anything else?
The thing with Miami, though, they do have a reasonable schedule in the first 8 weeks of the season.
Right.
But it's not like any of them are guaranteed wins or shoo-ins. I mean, there's a lot of... I think it's kind of the epitome of it comes down to, are they playing 500 or better ball going into their bye week? Because if they're not, they could be looking at a midseason coach change. Is Tyreek Hill on the team for as long as, he seems to be?
Yeah.
Does Tua stay healthy? And that's basically, they're hanging on to a thread by that. They're running out of running backs already. Like our favorite Ollie Gordon has gone in 2 weeks from RB4 to allegedly 1B because Devon Achan's gone down.
Yep.
And, may not miss time, but it is what it is. It's just not great vibes. They lost their entire secondary. At least their front 7 is somewhat decent. That's the only thing they can really hang their hat on. They're really bad in a lot of spots. So I wouldn't be shocked if they outproduce this because of their start, but they do have to start out strong, and I don't really anticipate them doing so. The Jets, they just sound like they're looking really rough offensively, and while defensively they are still pretty strong, I still believe in them being a top 10 unit.
Mm-hmm.
you got to score points, and it's hard to believe them just on a weekly basis scoring 21 points a game in this offense right now. Props are low across the board for every single player. It's a running back by committee, even though a lot of people don't want to admit it. And so right now, if they're just going to be an ugly watch, they're basically Pittsburgh, but with less credibility.
Sure,
I would say. But at the same time, maybe it's refreshing, and Aaron Glenn just kind of punches people in the mouth and they surprise people.
Yeah, like you said, the Jets' defense got a little bit worse, but I think they're still really good. I think their offensive line's fine. I think that's one of their better units, but pass catcher is an issue. And then Justin Fields being a first-year guy. Mason Taylor might be your wide receiver too.
Yep.
There's a lot of question marks on that side of it. And then, of course, like you said, the Breece Hall conversation in the back end is bad. But we're going to go over to the AFC North, which is going to be highlighted, of course, by the Baltimore Ravens. Cam, you actually have them going 14-3, which is awesome to see. They have the first offense, the 10th ranked defense from last year, the 9th overall strength of schedule. My biggest thing with them is they're just regular season warriors. They get killed the regular season. They do have Lamar and Derrick Henry, who will rank both first by PFF at their respective positions. Defense is absolutely stacked. They win games during the regular season. They've had some tough times in the playoffs, so we'll have to talk about that when we get to that point, because both of these teams obviously are going to the playoffs for us. I have them first. You have them first. But after that, it kind of comes down to the other teams in this division that are more interesting. Talking about Cincinnati, can they make the playoffs? So at 11-6 for you, I would expect them to. Yeah, but at 10-7, it's a little bit more of a question for me. And then Cleveland, not much to say. They have no idea what they're going to do at quarterback, and they're at 3-14 for both of us. And then Pittsburgh 7-10, 8-9 for me and you. First time under 500 in
the Mike Tomlin era.
Yeah, in Mike Tomlin's era. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and with Baltimore, it's kind of tough. 14-3 does feel a little rich. But they are built really well to last throughout the regular season. Sometimes, this isn't just saying that they are the best team, but that just kind of is how it's working out. There's not a lot of spots that I see them just in bad situations. They are a team that will occasionally drop one that they have no business losing. But at the same time, I expect them to go 4-2 or better in this division, probably 5-1, depending on if Pittsburgh can nail that last game of the season and if Baltimore's resting starters or not.
Right,
and then with Cincinnati, I think is the most interesting because they had, even though they did have a really bad defense, and it allegedly is getting worse, they did have a lot of balls not bounce their way last year, and a lot of situations where T started out the year injured and Jamar the holdout, and then they dropped one to New England. That's what costed them the playoffs. Eventually was that week 1 loss where they had no business losing us. I believe they were the biggest favorite on the week in the opener last year. And then being up with the potential, tied with the game-winning field goal, being missed, Baltimore goes down and immediately scores right after. And then the Thursday night melee where it was just back and forth and Baltimore just happened to have the ball last.
Right, of course.
Those kinds of things, and only one of those results needed to be happening for them to be what I would have said the most dangerous team in the AFC playoffs last year, because they went into the postseason. They just lost out on the tiebreaker, but they ran the table 4 in a row and looked dangerous to possibly upset some teams. This year, I think it'll be interesting because they're finally starting the year healthy. Joe Burrow in his tenure has started out 500 or worse every year through 4 weeks, and I think that's the reason that they're playing excessively in the preseason.
Right, of course.
Compared to other teams is because they're prioritizing the big start. But the thing is, they are going to have to outscore everybody this year. They're going to be a top 3 offense, bottom 3 defense, and how well will that formula mesh? It's not a Super Bowl winning formula, but we're not talking about Super Bowl, at least in the very short term with them. Yeah,
getting to 11-6. I saw that Jamar Chase on in the game against Washington. He said, "Our goals are to make win this division and make the playoffs, not win a Super Bowl." That wasn't the goal for him, which was kind of crazy to hear, of course, because you think, your star player would say that. But I think that they kind of understand where they're at and how they underperformed last year. This could be a team that does underperform based on bad vibes and stuff like that. Defensively, not paying Trey Hendrickson, going to be one of the worst defensive units if you watch our
It reminds me a lot of the after the Super Bowl win, but prime years of Drew Brees when he had a bunch of 8-8, 9-7 seasons in a row, and he had those 5,000-yard seasons. but I'm sorry, I can't win every game 38-35.
Right, of course.
And something had to give, and he had a lot of lulls throughout his prime because of his defense being so bad. It reminds me of that formula right now with what Cincinnati's doing.
Well, let's swap over Pittsburgh Steelers. All defense.
Yep.
They're led by T.J. Watt, added Jalen Ramsey. This team consistently had one of the best defenses every year for multiple years. It's not a surprise. Offense is going to hold them back, though. Aaron Rodgers plans to retire after the season. I don't even know what to do with this whole situation with him.
No.
Receiving core is lackluster, even after adding DK Metcalf. O-line has had tons of issues. One of the biggest question mark O-lines in football, possibly, other than maybe Zach Frazier, who their starting center is. And then their starting running back is going to be Jalen Warren, most likely, because Caleb Johnson has had a really bad camp and cannot pass block.
He's not even running ahead of Kenneth Gainwell right now.
Yeah,
and obviously that will likely change, but it's not with all these rookies that we're seeing already taking 1A or just workhorse role of an outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Him to not be doing that and him still being the 2B, 1B if you want to be optimistic.
Right.
It's just not ideal. And on top of that, my least favorite fantasy move of the entire top 100 is investing in DK Metcalf because it's not a fit to me. It just doesn't make any sense. They're not going to score a lot of points. He's not a high target guy. He's not a route runner. It doesn't mesh with what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. So again, similar to what we said about the Jets, they are going to be in 17 to 14 games every week. And it just happens to come down to if their defense holds up. And I just give Pittsburgh a little bit more credibility because I know Mike Tomlin always somehow finds his way to being in the postseason conversation. Duck Hodges, down the stretch, going to postseason games, Mason Rudolph and all that stuff. So I know we said last year at this very moment, it can't get much worse than Zach Wilson when we were talking about Aaron Rodgers and the optimism for the Jets. Same thing with Pittsburgh. It can't get much worse than what it recently has been with quarterback. But at the same time, we can't just hang our hat on that, vaulting them into the postseason.
Right, absolutely. And like you're saying, DK likes running, he doesn't run very good routes, like you're saying. That was one of my biggest complaints with him when he came out of college. But his vertical route is his best route. Aaron Rodgers can't throw the ball that far. We're just going to have to be honest. He's getting older. His arm is not the same talent that it used to be. So I think that, also holds them back. Basically, they're so ready defensively to win a Super Bowl. And then offensively, they're ready to go 3-14.
Yeah.
And so we're going to meet in the middle, basically, is what we did here.
And then with Cleveland, it just comes down to the only, notable thing to talk about throughout the year is just going to be whether or not Shedeur plays. And if he does, can he be the future? Because there's nothing else really much to talk about. I don't like any vibes at all about that team.
No.
And, Joe Flacco doesn't have to touch the field at all to win the job. It's such a manufactured and forced, what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they got a ton of draft capital because now they have, they traded back and got one of our favorite players in the class of Mason Graham. And then also getting more picks in addition to the first rounder from Jacksonville for next year's draft. So it's one of those, they're in a transition year. It's not going to be pretty, but, they're just there.
If they go 3-14, I think they go quarterback next year.
Right.
Because they will be at the top. And this is a little bit better of a quarterback class coming up. So I think that'll be what happens. And Shedeur kind of becomes a journeyman, most likely. So does Dylan Gabriel. And Joe Flacco obviously will not be on the team.
The only path I see is if they start out 1-7, 1-8, give Shedeur the reins, and he plays 500 ball the rest of the way, and they end up 6-11.
That would be
they're out of the conversation to have a top 5 pick without trading up, and then also that kind of doing the same thing with the same roster, but actually doing the wins. I think would be a positive enough lift in the locker room and all that stuff. I don't know if that would even happen, even if he does play, but that's just the only path that I see of them just not being the primary topic of conversation in next year's, draft stuff that we do.
And we'll talk about the team that we think is later on.
Mm-hmm.
We do have one team that is worse than the Browns. Let's go on to the AFC South, though. AFC South is a absolute I don't even know, mosh posh.
Mm-hmm.
But just shit show. How about that? If you look through it, I have 8-9, 8-9, 9-8, 4-13. We're kind of all. You're a little more spread out. I'm this is.
And the weird thing is, You're right. I am more spread out, but this to me is the division that is the most wide open and has the most unknown. I know the NFC North is probably the toughest from top to bottom, but I don't have the path of every single team winning the division in that one compared to this one. Like, I can see Cam Ward doing exactly what CJ Stroud did because Tennessee's roster is respectable. It's not just a bunch of young guys. There's a lot of vets on that team, especially on the defensive side. So, Calvin Ridley has been the talk of the town with his chemistry already. Decent, situation. They just have a really bad offensive line that has kind of been hit back-to-back drafts, and I just want to see what happens with them. With Indy, literally before we started recording this video, they announced that Daniel Jones is going to be the starter, and it is a long-term move, not a short-term move. I guess, re-emphasized by Shane Steichen. So with that said, it's just I think that their ceiling is significantly capped compared to everybody else, but they're very competitive. And if they want to win games their way, which is doing what they did way back when with Jonathan Taylor when he was Offensive Player of the Year, and he's flirting with 2,000 all-purpose yards, they can win the division that way, even if Daniel Jones is the quarterback. I like a lot of the moves that they made defensively, too. Yeah. So they're just a sneaky team. But it's just not trusting Daniel Jones, and that's just what it comes down to.
I had a 9-8 team win this division. At the end of the day, we didn't even have double digits. With Indy, like you're saying, their defense was pretty bad last year. They were 29th ranked defense last year. That obviously is not a normal thing in Indy. I think that gets better, but it's a little uncomfortable in Indy. I think that Houston, I cannot trust a team with the worst offensive line in football to make the playoffs. I think that, you win games or you win championships, of course, and push for winning games by having a good O-line, a good D-line, starts up front. Houston does not have that. Obviously, they could miss the playoffs because of it. Defense is a top 5 unit in my opinion.
I really like their defense. I really like D'Amico Ryans. And but the problem, and we've kind of said it, is just they have by far, it's not even close. People want to make fun of what Cincinnati did, in their preseason game against Washington. Houston's basically got 5 new starters, and they're just piecing things together with vets. They're not even doing a ton of, late round rookies, but then also the run game just being completely absent right now because it sounds like Joe Mixon is trending to be missing the start of the season. Nick Chubb does not look the same. Even Woody Marks, who people want to prop up, is playing behind Dare Ogunbowale. Then there's also Damian Pierce. So it's going to be you have no run game, and it is all about passing. Mm-hmm. And then people are propping up the Iowa State rookie receivers. Well, they're playing behind Christian Kirk and I'm missing
John Mechie.
John Mechie got traded.
Oh, that's right. He did. That was very recent.
Yeah.
From this video.
Who am I thinking of?
Hutchinson. Hutchinson.
Thank you. Playing in 3 receiver sets, they're both playing behind them. So it's just straight up Nico Collins, and Nico Collins by himself is not enough to prop this offense into being a 10-win team once again.
Yeah, I just think the Joe Mixon no timetable. Basically, how I put this is the Houston Texans are lucky they're playing in the AFC South.
Yes.
That's basically the only way to put it. Jacksonville, who let's get into the real team, right? Mm-hmm. So we both had going into the playoffs. Liam Cohen coming in, can he fix the offense is the real question. They added Travis Hunter. Can he get Trevor Lawrence to play up to his talent? And if you've watched our bold predictions, can believe so. So go check that out if you haven't yet. But this defense has to be better. 31st overall last year. They have good players on the defensive line. The secondary is currently the issue that really needs to improve. They added Travis Hunter. It's, on both sides of the ball. He is going to help them, hopefully. But I just think Jacksonville has the highest ceiling floor combo out of this one.
You took the words right out of my mouth because, there's definitely a path that this just does not work, and it's another disaster. And the cringy Duval thing that Liam did in his opening press conference is just becomes a meme because of how bad it ends up going. Or, hey, Trevor's finally healthy after 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And again, short-term memory for a lot of fans and media. He was not only had one of the bigger playoff comebacks and had played Kansas City close the following year. They were running away with the division, path to being the 1 seed, and then just injuries plummet, and then he also goes down last year. it was just all bad.
Yeah.
But once again, another situation, it's an offensive coach. And so there's reason to believe that they could actually have a reasonable season this year.
Absolutely. Let's go over and talk about the AFC West. The AFC West is, of course, it's of course where the Raiders play. So my division that I watch way too often because we are not as good as the other teams in it. 7-10 for us, but I have Denver winning this division at 13-4. You actually have Kansas City winning the division at 13-4. I think that the reason I didn't have Kansas City as high as I think most people will is just they have, in my opinion, taken a step back offensively. They did. Can they fix that offensive line? And then they added, of course, Josh Simmons, who was one of our favorite players. So why the heck did he drop so far? That's a whole thing. But defense saved them last year, and I think their defense is going to get a little bit worse. So it's like, can they win the same close games that they won last season? That's the big thing for me because they won a ton of one-score games last year, and I just don't. I think that some of those are going to go to the other side, basically.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. I do at least think there's a reasonable chance that the offense does improve because finally all the weapons are healthy together, and that you would think that Rashid's got to serve a suspension at some point, but at the same time, everybody's healthy, and it's not the worst receiving core in football for the third year in a row. So there's optimism there at least. We do like at least the running back by committee. If Rashard Smith or Eli Mitchell kind of has a little bit more juice than what Kareem Hunt by himself was able to provide. Lion did take a step back, like you said, but Josh Simmons, one of our favorite linemen, already has won the job. And so that makes you feel better when your tackles are solved. And then you can figure out your interior compared to the other way around because their 2 Super Bowl losses were the fault of having no tackles.
Yeah.
So, but my biggest thing with them was just I don't really see the path of them losing multiple games after their bye because they do play Denver twice. And let's just optimistically assume that they split. But you got Indy at home, Houston at home, Chargers at home, at Dallas, at Tennessee, at Raiders. So unless they're resting starters or there's a ton of injuries, I just don't see a loss other than splitting Denver. But they've had Denver's number. So there's an outcome of them just being undefeated after a, say so-so start. I just think there's a path to where they're just going to be there again. And if you're going to dethrone them, it's going to be in the postseason, not because they're fighting to get in.
So I actually had them going 4-5 prior to the bye. So as you were saying, but prior to the bye, it's really tough. I'll read those names out. They're playing at the Chargers, Philly, at the Giants, Baltimore, at Jacksonville, Detroit, Las Vegas, Washington, at Buffalo, and then they have their bye. So I had them losing 5 of those games. I think they come off maybe a little bit slower than they have. And that's why they have 7 losses for me because actually, how many losses did you have prior to the bye? I'm guessing 2 here.
No, I definitely had 3.
Was it 3? Okay, so you only had 1 loss after, and I had 2.
Right.
So I mean, we're on the same page.
I think I had them losing to Philly, to Baltimore, and to Buffalo. Okay. But at the same time, like you said, there's several games that they're are losable, like the Brazil game against the Chargers opening week, Detroit, who last time they beat them in Kansas City, and then at Jacksonville, I think is a sneaky loss on a Monday night primetime slot. So, and then Washington, who was a big surprise last year, another Monday primetime slot. They have a lot of primetime games.
They do because they are primetime for sure.
Yeah, so
players.
I think the path is more volatile, but because of the second half of the season, I think they can really kind of hit their stride. And it will set themselves up to where if they are in the thick of things at the end again, like I'm not shocked at all based on the way the schedule is set up. If it is flipped and all those games were early and then those hard games were later, I may be feeling a little bit differently.
Sure. Then the Chargers, I had 11-6, you had 10-7. I mean, obviously, right there in the same thing in the realm. Yeah. Seems ready to take a step forward on paper, but I don't love obviously the injury to Rashawn Slater, who's going to be out for the year. Herbert has not done well in the playoffs. I think that is something we will talk about here in a little while.
Probably has. He's one of the 5 biggest needing to prove it years of anybody in football because of the fact that he had such a great year and then just shit the bed.
Yeah, against Houston last year. It was
at the end of the season. So
more interceptions in that game
Double.
the whole year.
Double.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty rough. Wide receiver core is just okay. They do have an injury to Quentin Johnson currently. When Mike Williams retired, I was like, okay, this is question, but then they bring in Keenan Allen. So it's just okay. Rookie running back, Omarion Hampton is an exciting player. The veteran in Najee Harris blew his eye out. So we'll have to see what happens there. We don't know when he is a timetable. And then I just don't like their secondary. If they did not have Derwin James in their secondary, this would be considered a bottom 4 secondary in my personal opinion.
And the thing is, their defense did get worse, and they also lost Joey Bosa. But at the same time, they were the number 1 scoring defense. So say they pull back to 10th, they're still good enough to be a playoff team.
Right.
So it just kind of depends on how the seeding works because the AFC is really strong. Does 10-7 get you there? I'm not sure. 11-6, like you said, definitely.
Yeah, definitely does. Right?
And then Raiders, best 4th place team. They're really solid, but they're just not these other teams.
Yeah, we have a good O-line. Max Crosby is him. Brock Bowers is him. Like, we have 2 of the best players at their respective positions. Ashton Genty's coming in, so hopefully we have a 3rd best player at their respective positions. But it's just, we don't have the upside of talent at the receiver position. Our secondary is atrocious.
I think the massive upgrades were the offensive scheme with Chip Kelly coming back to the NFL after some success in the college realm, and also Geno Smith being an exponential upgrade over a Jimmy G or Gardner Minshew.
AOC.
But even then, like, he took probably, I would say, as talented of a team, Seattle, 10 wins last year. They still didn't make the postseason. So can he get him there? Sure. I think you're on the outside looking in, but I think there's more of a path than there has been in a few years for them to sneak into the playoffs.
Right.
So I like them. It's just really tough. It's really tough.
Difficult division, though. It makes it really hard, too. And then we'll talk about the Denver Broncos. I have them going 13 wins. You had them 11. They're at 9.5 win total. I think that's a hammer. Yeah. I mean, whatever. That's crazy. I might be too high on Denver. It is what it is. Above average at every position except wide receiver and running back right now, and that's just because we don't know if RG Harvey's him. Defensively, and I think RJ Harvey's very good, don't get me wrong. Defensively, they get the most out of their players. They've been awesome. They have, just Nick Bonito came out, and he was a top 40 on the top 100 NFL players list. And then you had Pat Surtain, who was the defense player of the year. Sean Payton, I trust, And so let's see if Bo Nix can take them to the playoffs. This would be obviously much more than this is like shooting for the stars at 13-4. But I enjoy it.
Yeah, and with them, I really like their schedule. It's just kind of how strongly can they perform in the division.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had them at 2-4, so getting swept by Kansas City, splitting with
everybody else.
Yeah, splitting with everybody else. So if they can do 4-2, then they're right where you have them, which is 13-4. Because we both, I would assume, only had 2 losses to non-divisional opponents.
I had 3-3, so I had 3 losses.
Okay,
to non-divisional.
Okay, so
wait. I had 1 loss to non-divisional. Apologies.
Gotcha.
3-3 for the
Okay. Yeah. So kind of similar boat of just like, hey, they can do a lot of damage outside the conference or outside the division. It just depends on how strongly they perform in it, and that can just lead. If they are able to run the table, that might be my dark horse to win it all.
Sure.
But again, if they have to go on the road, in my case, they have to be a 5 seed or worse. Or if they're 2-3 and they have to go to Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City, it's hard to imagine that path other than them being capped as a second round playoff exit. Yeah,
I think in the AFC it's all about getting that number 1 overall seed, and we talked about that last year with KC, and it's difficult. I mean, like, you just look at these teams up here and you're like, wow, this is a tough division, and it's like, okay, but you have to go 13 wins. Including in your division to make it worth the playoffs almost. Because otherwise you're going to go and find a Baltimore team that's going to
and shoot, like last year we had a 13-3 and a 14-2 team playing the final regular season game in Detroit and Minnesota. The loser was the 5 seed.
Yeah.
The winner was home field. And Minnesota ends up losing the first round because they didn't get that home field, and then they played a team that was probably really matched up well against them in the Rams. I can see a path of just 2 of these teams, whether it's Chargers and Denver, Kansas City and Denver, like a pair of these teams being 13-4, and one of them has to go on the road,
Yeah.
and then they're just in a tough spot. And so if Denver goes on this Minnesota-esque run, one of the best regular season teams, and then they end up being the 5 seed, are you surprised that they lose their opener? Not necessarily. And if they do win, but then they lose to the other team, it just kind of feels like, yeah, but what did you truly take a leap, or did you just take advantage of a really schedule that favored their way? Because last year they were undefeated against teams that were losing records, and then they were just really bad against teams that won. Yeah. That's really how they got to the postseason.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go over to the NFC. We're going to go from my division to Cam's division. We have the Eagles going 12-5. Both of us do, so they are the winner of this division. I have 11-6 for Washington. You have 10-7. We actually have exactly similar, games, except for we have a different view on the New York Giants. I have them going 4-13. I just think their schedule is really tough, and I don't love the quarterback situation there. But at the same time, I can completely understand 7-10 because their defense is very good at football. So.
Yeah, and to me, and I said this in the bold predictions video, is just the Giants at least have something to lean on.
Yeah.
And having a top 3 defensive line is really, I think, a very powerful asset. Andrew Thomas was activated off the pup, so that was really strong news that they could be, a better offensive line than that they've been trying to hope for.
Yeah.
And Russell Wilson, even though he did take a step back, he was benched, then he went to Pittsburgh, finally won the job after his returning from injury. And it was ugly, but he got Pittsburgh to the postseason. So I'm not saying that he has to do that with the Giants or even Jackson Dart if and when he takes over. But to get him to 6-7 wins, I think is very plausible. And it really came down to, because they played the last week of the season, Dallas and the Giants. They're both 6-7 win teams to me. And they're just not there. But Dallas is going down. Giants are going up. Right. Can they cross paths? That's the biggest thing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about the Cowboys, there are just some bad vibes in Dallas right now. Micah hasn't gotten paid. And, I liked what J.J. Watt said. He said, pay your guys early so that you don't have to worry about this. Injury to Diggs. D-Law remarks about never winning in Dallas, when he left and went to Seattle. Tyler Guyton's injury, the running back situation, 5th ranked strength of schedule. Just the best thing to happen to them this offseason is George Pickens. And that's crazy because I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, that's not necessarily.
It's not what they necessarily needed, and it's not really going to vault them into more wins. But
yeah, exactly.
My biggest kind of surprise, 6-11, it's their win total 7.5. So I'm betting the under. Feel good. I'm betting a buddy of the show 50 on that win total. But the biggest surprise to me was I almost had them going worse than that, because I've talked about their post-bye schedule, how it's just like Philly, Kansas City, at Detroit, Minnesota, Chargers, at Washington, and then at Giants. So at Giants, at Raiders are your 2 easiest games, and they're on the road against teams that are on the come up, and there's a path to where they lose all of those freaking games. But at the same time, I gave them a couple that they probably would be dogs to win, just to get them to that point, to not be too pessimistic on them. I just the second half of the schedule is just way too brutal to make me think that they have any chance to make the postseason. So even if Dak is healthy, I'm very pessimistic on Dallas this year. Coaching staff is just not what it's a rental. Yeah. And everything, I think this whole franchise just needs to be humbled by a healthy season that went to shit. And I think that's what's coming. So brace yourselves if you're a Cowboys fan.
Here we go. Ex-defensive coordinator Dan Quinn over at the Washington Commanders. We have them both going. Okay, so 10-7 might not make the playoffs, but 11-6, that's probably a playoff team. So, Dan Quinn plus Cliff Kingsbury tandem really works. Offensively, Terry McLaurin hold in though. Brian Robinson trade news. Those are some weird things going on. They did add Laramie Tunsil. Defensively, just middle of the road talent, though, in my opinion. But they do have a good coach.
They have good leadership, though, like Bobby Wagner, Von Miller coming in.
Yeah,
very positive players to lead a young secondary. Marshawn Lattimore barely got to play after they traded for him last year. They're a candidate to me to take a step back. I just couldn't get there enough to push them out of the postseason. But really like them. They're exciting. They're going to be on a lot of primetime spots. But now that you're in the limelight, can you hold on to that success you had? Because they basically were just 12 o'clock game warriors that
Mm-hmm.
got themselves, and then they surprised some teams. They ran into a favorable schedule in the postseason, being able to play the worst division winner in Tampa Bay, and then inherit Detroit, who basically fell apart, and they were not the same team. And if Detroit was healthy at all, I don't know. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been close, but there was just a talent gap.
Yeah, there is.
With healthy teams.
Sure.
So that's one of those things is just Washington, can you repeat that success now that the pressure is a little bit on you because you were one of the final two teams in the conference to survive?
Yeah, I just think this is an okay team that should win 10 games. Like, that's kind of how I put it, and I have them winning 11. It's more so like, can you find the games that you think they're going to lose on their schedule? Because they have a 9.5 total wins, line right now. Offense was 7th last year. Defense was 13th. They're not losing a ton of players. We have to figure out, of course, what's going to happen with Terry McLaurin. But I think, if he plays, and he should probably end up getting paid. That's normally what happens. We get a little hold in. They come back by week 2 or something.
I thought it was very strange though, that both he and Robinson
were not
they returned to practice, or Terry was activated off the pup. Brian Robinson, even though he is having his name floated around, for neither of them to even be in the building of a primetime game, play or a preseason game, I thought was just kind of a weird, what's going on kind of sign.
Yeah, weird vibes.
But either way, and then Philly, Super Bowl champ. On paper, they have the best team. They have a wide gap to me between talent of them and the next NFC team. However, just be careful. Just hammering them on going all the way. I know it's hard to paint a picture of how their demise will happen.
Right.
But I just don't. Each of the last 2 times they made the Super Bowl, they really disappointed the following year. They went 9-7 after their first Super Bowl win in 2018, and then when they lost the Super Bowl, they came back. They were 10-0, and then lost 6-7, and then were blown out by Tampa Bay in the postseason in a wild card round. So I'm not saying that they're due for another one, but this has been a thing with them before. So they will be right there to inherit a high playoff seed and spot. If they did win this division, it would be the first time since 2004 there has been a repeat winner.
Yes. But
just, keep an eye out.
Yeah, no, there are some curses here. Last Super Bowl appearance, they played poorly after. The NFC East, like you said, has a new winner every year, and Nick Sirianni is hated.
Yeah.
When he doesn't perform, doesn't win Super Bowls, he could go to the freaking NFC Championship game and be hated. So, there's a little bit of weirdness, but at the same time, they're a defensive juggernaut. They have all the positions figured out. They offensively, their O-line is awesome. I'm going to, stick behind that. Landry Dickerson does have an injury, but he should hopefully be back. They have 2 amazing receivers. They have Saquon. Jalen Hurts doesn't have to do that much, basically, in my opinion. So, this team is just the most loaded team in football, basically. And I don't know how they demise, like you said. It's like, I don't know how.
It's hard to just picture how it's going to happen. I just have the feeling, in my opinion, is it Philly or the field? I'm pretty comfortable siding with the field. I just don't know. I don't know who the dog is in that fight yet.
Yeah, there's going to be a crazy one for sure. Let's go over to a division that has some dogs for sure. Like you were just saying, that might be able to figure it out. I actually have this division super close, and I didn't realize that when I was going to be done, you were going to have this division this close.
Well, it's hard to not to. This division last year set the record for most wins by division.
Right. 3
teams went to the playoffs. The 4th team was playoff caliber, had horrible coaching, and then had a lot of balls not bounce their way to not end up being close, but were basically capable of beating each one of them in their own respective ways.
Right.
During points. But, I'll let you keep on going.
Well, I was going to say, I was just looking at your records, and I'm like, is there only going to be – this is separate because I have no idea what his playoff looks like, but is there only going to be one team in this division making it, I have 2 10-7 teams and 11-6. We have the Minnesota Vikings going on my side. Cam has Detroit going. Detroit is interesting, super interesting, because talent is absolutely there. They now inherit the 2nd-ranked strength of schedule. Their offense was 2nd overall last year. But the biggest concerns are they're losing Ben Johnson, they're losing Aaron Glenn, they're losing multiple other coaches on their group.
Their entire interior offensive line is new.
Yeah, exactly. But they're returning basically the full offense other than that, and which ranked 2nd. So they have the talent. We also see Aiden Hutchinson coming back, which is just going to be
We'll
a breath
see.
of fresh air. Hopefully he comes back to full form. That's just not realistic, though, because of the injury. Marcus Davenport's coming back after injuring his arm last year. Secondary was an issue.
And his Straw's gone for the year already.
Yeah.
So, I'm very nervous about them taking a step back, but can somebody overpower them? This is my least confident division of how it ends up. And obviously it makes sense if both of us have all 4 teams finishing within 2 games of each other.
Well, you have Detroit winning, and I have Detroit last.
And I'm probably less optimistic about Detroit than you are. So
yeah, exactly.
It's just completely wide open to me in this division. I think there will still probably be 2 teams get in. It could be any of these 4. I could see any of these teams missing the playoffs. I can see any of them winning the division. That includes both teams that I have with losing records.
Mm-hmm.
They're just all there, and they're so super close. And it comes down to, can one of these teams sneak away with 4 or 5 even division wins?
Yeah.
That might be the difference maker in being a 3 seed or being a 7 seed.
Well, let's go over to Minnesota. Minnesota has the 6th strength of schedule, season dependent on how good JJ is. Really, that's what it comes down to. But I do love Kevin O'Connell as a quarterbacks coach. And we've talked about this in the past. We had JJ and Michael Penix and Bo Nix all ranked higher than Cam Ward on our overall board. So JJ is actually good at football. If you believe in Cam Ward, believe in JJ also, right? So, especially in this kind of environment, offensive line should be good with Darrisaw coming back. They added Donovan Jackson to their left guard spot. I actually really like this team, and I think they will have a good season, as you can tell by 11-6.
I think my gut says that you're more right than I am about the Vikings.
Okay,
and it mainly is because they won 14 games last year, set a record in their franchise with Sam Darnold, and they improved their roster. And only replacement was Sam Darnold for their first round rookie,
right? Of course,
first year quarterback in JJ McCarthy. And even if he doesn't have the most statistically inclined season, if he has something that Caleb Williams had, which was 20 touchdowns, 6 picks, doesn't turn the football over, they'll win 11 games.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
completely agree.
So I hope I'm wrong on them. But again, all of these teams had a really difficult schedule, and I think down the stretch, it was hard to find wins for them.
Yeah.
So I think it's just kind of they're the odd team out. I don't like being consensus that they are the 4th place team because I don't think their talent warrants that. But at the same time, none of these teams do. All of these teams would be 2nd place or better teams in any other division.
Sure.
They're just kind of fighting with each other right now.
Well, Green Bay is going to win 9 or 10 games and be on the bubble like every year. I don't think it changes. Offense projects to be good. They have no alpha wide receiver, but they lean on Josh Jacobs. The offensive line is really good. Can Jordan Love take a step forward? Defensively, you have cornerback issues because you're currently starting Nate Hobbs and Keyshawn Nixon, but otherwise,
they basically are
it's boring. They're boring.
I was about to say that they're boring and they're the most balanced team, but they lack the most star power compared to every other team. So can they overcome that and just kind of boring their way to 11 wins? They can. I don't really believe in doing that. I don't think that Jordan Love is that caliber of a quarterback.
Sure.
It's kind of weird because the one sample is just him being a below average quarterback, having a 6-game stretch of just being awesome.
Yeah, really good.
And then the following year, the entire year, even because it started week 1, having multiple injuries to him and his receiving core. So he's finally healthy, but we don't have a sample of him having an extended full season of he's the guy and it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just been bad to good or just injury. Can't really take much away from it. So I want to see, it's like a believe it when I see, even though we've seen Green Bay be, right in the thick of things for multiple years in a row now.
Yeah. Chicago is not boring.
No, they're not boring at all. Again, we were both wrong on them last year to an extent. If we were coaching those games, maybe we would have been right.
Shoot. Anybody but Matty Riflis and Shane
they invented new ways to lose football games last year with the Hail Mary, the Thanksgiving not even getting a playoff,
forgetting your timeouts,
the letting the clock run down and then settling for a long field goal, taking quarterback. Yeah, it was crazy the amount of ways they've been to lose. 2 different results happened. They're a playoff team, and this year can they? It's a tough schedule for somebody that finished 4th place, but I believe in the roster enough to where they either close that gap or maybe pass a team or 2 in this division. I wouldn't be shocked if they went all the way. I think it's a year early to see. But I feel very good about the direction they're heading. It just depends on how hot they could start. I think that will determine their success this year.
Sure. If you just talk about some of the guys they added their whole new interior offensive line, added to Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones on the left and right tackle spots. And then you have your talent at the skill position for sure. Roman Dunze, DJ Moore, Colson Loveland, Luther Burden coming in. Like there's some talent there. And then defensively, I actually think I'm enjoying what they're doing. I want Jalen Johnson to be healthy. That would make me feel a little bit better. But they've got some really, really solid players across their defense. Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson when he comes back. And so I just think they're two linebackers. Like they have talent everywhere. So now they just have to put it together. They have a new coach that hopefully can get them over that hump and get them into the playoffs
and
we think they can.
Unlock the QB1 of 2024's draft class, even though the public doesn't want to believe it anymore.
Yeah, he's not that. Drake May's better. Jaden Daniels
people
is obviously
picking
better.
Bo Nix over him to start a franchise, like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But again, if Ben Johnson can't make it work,
then
I'd get really nervous. But so far, what I've seen, like I paid no attention to the viral missing throws on the net, or hey, he's throwing picks in the red zone and all that stuff. Like I think that they were just making him drink from the fire hose, and then just we're going to simplify with what works for you and what you're good at. Right. And you saw that because he shredded Buffalo's ones, and we feel very good about Buffalo. So I think they're in store for a very strong year.
Yeah. Let's go over to the easiest conference in football. I am very pessimistic on the New Orleans Saints, and so are you. 3 total wins between the two of us. I have 1-16, and I don't even know if that's gonna. This could be an 0-17 team. They're that bad. They're currently looking at starting Tyler Shuff or Spencer Rattler, but really neither are good. Spencer Rattler was the 42nd out of 42nd quarterback last year for the PFF grades. Rookie and Tyler Shuff overdrafted by far. Jake Haener was one of the worst quarterbacks in football last year. It's like, and then also, can they stay healthy? Chris Olave, 1 concussion away from retirement. Offensive line has had some issues every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Ramczyk a couple years ago and last year they had some issues. Defense ranked 30th, and then they lose Tyrann Mathieu to retirement. I mean, nothing good. Nothing good about
the
this
tough
team.
thing. The tough thing about them is I just feel like they're the team that the public usually makes mistakes on. If somebody's clearly the worst team, they're going to be underdogs in all 17 games, and then assume that just that'll happen. When it's the NFL, people play for their jobs. Kellen Moore doesn't want to go 0-17.
I know. And
he's creative enough offensively to where he can overcome terrible quarterback play to win 4 or 5 games and win yourself out of the first overall pick, similar to what New England did last year. Well, we called them being the worst team, but they could sneak their way out of things. That's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. So if they, and plus being in the easiest division, if they split this division, go 3-3, they're out of the number 1 pick conversation, obviously exceed the win totals that we have for both of them. And that's on the board. So
I'm just extremely pessimistic.
I am too. I don't like them. They're 2-15 for me. So even though I double your win total, it's still not very good. But I would just say it's the NFL. And it's not like, even if there's a talent gap, balls bounce different ways weirdly. The Saints last year started out averaging 40 points a game and 2-0, and then lost majority of the rest of their games. So weird stuff happens all the time, and weird can force them out of the number 1 pick conversation. It just depends on, defensively, and on top of that, how much success they can have on the offensive line and the movement that they've been trying to do. So very bad team. We're going to project them both to have the worst or the first pick in the draft next year. But they could win a couple more games than that. I wouldn't bet the win total at the under. I would just say that they're just not going to be good.
I mean, they have the 31st strength of schedule. That's what really bails them out, Right. Next team up is the Carolina Panthers. We have these teams basically in order. We'll talk about the top. I don't know how your tiebreaker worked, but Carolina, I have 6-11, you have 7-10. They get better. They're looking better, to say the least. They were 29th offensively and 32nd defensively last year. Bryce Young has way too many options right now. They need to figure out. They need to, make it easier on us as fantasy people. But this offense should be much improved overall. Chuba was really consistent last year, so hopefully he can continue that. And then defensively, which 32nd defensively last year, they brought in a bunch of free agents to help them fix those issues. So can they stay healthy? And then I think this team is better. and can beat teams they shouldn't beat.
Yeah, they're
almost to Kansas City last year. Remember?
They're continuing the trend up. I think they're one of my teams that I'm most looking forward to watching, just because they're just a fun team that's just going to be there in a lot of games. I think there's going to be a ton of games where it's just one score. They probably are on the wrong side because of lack of veteran play or quarterback play or head coaching being at a disadvantage at any of those spots. I think is a big deal. But they're going to be in a lot of games this year, and I think they're a fun team. Outside chance of winning the division, I think if that's on the board, it's going to be the division's by default 9-8 winner, like I have, but it's just going to be them rather than them breaking out and being an 11-6 team or something like that. But it's a fun enough team to where I'm going to be paying attention to throughout the year.
Yeah, and they have the 28th strength of schedule, so they have a chance to play some of the lower echelon teams, including their own division. Atlanta is going to be who I guess we talk about next, because I have no idea who you had winning, but I had them going 11-6. Is it Atlanta's year? Because we thought it was talent-wise, they have more talent than any of the other teams. Yeah, Tampa Bay. But I think Michael Penix looks the part. I think Drake London has wide receiver 1 potential. Bijan Robinson has running back 1 potential. He's actually being drafted RB1. So can they put it all together? They have a good offensive line. Defense is the issue right now. Can they get pass rush? Well, what did they go do? They go draft 2 pass rushers, even though we're not as high on Jalen Walker. James Pierce has looked great, first off. But we're not as high on Jalen Walker, but they give themselves something. They give them juice.
Suddenly, everybody laughing at them, trading way too much capital to go up and get James Pierce. Like, all of a sudden, nobody's really bringing that up anymore.
No, because
he's really good. He's just, like, undisciplined, and he didn't know what to do with the character issues. But they basically doubled down on things we've been trying to get them to draft for 5 years, and hopefully that'll be the thing that props them up. My division tiebreaker actually gave Tampa Bay the win because I had Tampa going 4-2 in the division.
Gotcha.
Atlanta going 3-3. Obviously, them splitting. If Atlanta would sweep them like Tampa Bay did last year, they would have. I'm sorry. If Atlanta sweeps them like they did to Tampa last year, they would have the advantage. I'm just going to give them a split. I think it'll be a fun wire-to-wire, bell-to-bell division battle all season.
Yes.
Tampa Bay has the opportunity or unfortunate opportunity to start off slower because they're going to be missing Tristan Wirfs for 6 weeks. And on top of that, Chris Godwin not being healthy, Mike Evans getting up there in age. Running back situation, a lot of people are optimistic on Bucky, but it's still not a highly volatile. I can just lean on this unit. And then defensively, there's holes. So the path is there for Atlanta to win it. And it's just believing in Michael Penix and the rest of the spots and spots they made. But we'll just kind of see what happens.
Plus, I think coach is an interesting talking point because I think obviously Tampa Bay has the better coaching staff. With now Liam Cohen leaving, that's a question mark, of course, for Tampa Bay. Let's get into Tampa Bay. I'm 10-7 there, 9.5 win total. You have a 9-8. And that still wins the division, like we talked about, possibly being one of those things. 19th strength of schedule, and it's just the easiest division in football. Just don't slip up and win, and you win it, basically.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's defaulted their way into winning it for multiple years in a row now, and even if they were 8-9 or 9-8 or 10-7, they find a way to even win playoff games or be right there. So they're a sneaky fun team. We love us some Baker Mayfield on this show.
Gamer.
And I just don't know how it'll really come out. But they have a lot of games where they just can drop or they can win. It's a highly volatile situation. They're capable of beating a lot of good teams. Last year, they were the only team to beat Detroit in Detroit until the playoffs. And that was very early in the season when they were full strength, too. So Tampa Bay is good. They can beat anybody on any given day. And I just love watching them play.
So I have Atlanta winning the division, Tampa Bay possibly making the playoffs. Cam with Tampa Bay winning the division. I'm guessing Atlanta didn't make the playoffs at 9-8, but we will see. We will see. Let's go over to the last division. Is the NFC West, and very tough division in my opinion to predict. I think that Seattle's the only team that I think is pretty obvious, like we have here, 7-10, 6-11. I think they got worse, not better, losing DK, Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith. But San Francisco, the Rams, and Arizona are all very interesting conversations. You have Arizona at 8-9. I have them at 10-7. Tell me why you have them a little bit lower.
It's just I don't trust coaching staff quarterback play late in the season because it hasn't happened yet.
Sure.
It's just one of those things. I have them starting off pretty strong. I think it was like 5-3, 6-3. But last year, that's exactly where they were. Like head over heels, 3-0 in the division, like game and a half basically over everybody going into December, and then just let it go once again. Last year there was no excuses, and it's just they bring it back basically with the same offense.
Yes.
Maybe there's improvements of maybe giving Trey McBride the freaking football in the end zone, or Marvin Harrison actually having the true chemistry with Kyler, because that's really what the issue was last year. It wasn't him playing poorly. They just weren't on the same page. Can you trust James Conner / Trey Benson and the coaching play calling of not doing draws on 3rd and 8 all the time?
Sure.
Defensively, they made a lot of improvements, and 8-9 feels a little light. I'm not going to lie, but I have them right as an 8-9 win team. Would not bet their win total because I believe it is 8.5.
8.5, yeah.
So they could be on either side of that coin. It's just that late in the season, let me pull up their December schedule because that's what's really ailed them in recent years. They play they play Tampa Bay the last game in November. Then they have the Rams at Houston, Atlanta at Cincinnati at Rams.
Okay.
Are they going to be favored in more than one of those games? Probably not. So I think they need to finish strong to be a playoff team.
Right.
I'm a little pessimistic on that spot because that's just something that they need to prove me wrong on.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, they're returning most of their offense, which is good to see. Marvin Harrison, year 2 breakout. Trey McBride's the top 3 tight end. Defense was improved in free agency and the draft also, like you said. So I don't think this defense is elite by any means, but I think they are not the reason they lose games. So I think that it could be a better year as I have 10-7. Seattle Seahawks are the lowest team on our group in here. I'm 7-10, you have 6-11. I just, like I said, I think that if you look at losing DK, Tyler Lockett, Geno, and then replacing that with Cooper Kupp and Sam Darnold, I just think,
and even DeMarcus Lawrence, like weird. It's just weird moves.
Yeah, sure.
I don't love what they did. Clint Kubiak and their offense is really humming in the preseason so far. So maybe they just kind of really hammer and lean on that run game, whether it's him, Charbonnet, or others, even Damian Martinez, who is capable.
Olani, the guy that's killing it.
Yeah, so if that's the path they want to run down, I'm completely on board. But they were a 10-win team last year that missed the playoffs. I think they were the one team that got worse, and they don't have the schedule to kind of save them.
Sure.
So that's the problem with me. San Francisco, on the other hand, they did get worse also. Probably even worse compared to Seattle, but it's just hard not to default into 10 wins.
Yeah, I know.
Like there's no reason this roster should be favored to win the division, but they are because of their win total, which their win total is what it is because they have the easiest by far strength schedule.
Yeah, they're bailed out by it. Absolutely. Purdy going from $1 million to $42 million is the cap hit is really killing them. That's why, we talked about the Broncos earlier. They took 2 of their defense players. Purdy, does this, basically is his ability enough to make, right the ship on not paying everybody else? Defensive line is terrible. They may start 3 rookies. Michael Williams, CJ West, and Alfred Collins could all be starters because they have some really big issues on their D-line other than Nick Bosa. They lost multiple defensive starters because they have no money. Charvarius Ward, Fuanga, Leonard Floyd, Dre Greenlaw. This team isn't going deep into the playoffs, but they are going to most likely make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, and the thing is, even if they start off slow, they do have a ton of injuries right now. Christian McCaffrey, who everybody's scared of his injuries, he's the only healthy running back. Multiple receivers are hurt. I think Dominique Cooney went down with an injury.
Yes.
So he'll miss some time. They lost their entire secondary or most of it. So there's a path where they start off slow, but it doesn't freaking matter because post-week 9, they don't play a 2024 playoff team. Their hardest game is going to be at home, Sunday Night Football against Chicago. That is their hardest game after week 9. And they're probably going to win. Yeah. And they're probably going to win 6 to 7 of those 8.
Mm-hmm.
Give or take a loss to an upset team against Cleveland or Arizona. Sure, I can see it. But they're going to win most of those games. So that just means that, hey, they have to lose to New Orleans and Arizona and Jacksonville early to then not make the postseason.
Right.
It's just not it's not in the cards to me to be that bad to lose that many games. But I'm just happy that I ended up not having them win the division because I was really vying for not happening when I was doing these predictions.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the team that you did have winning. It's the Los Angeles Rams. All depend on Matthew Stafford's back. I'm not sure what to do with that. Obviously, he did practice, which is great to see, and he was out there throwing, which I want him to succeed as much as possible. But it does come down to that, in my personal opinion. Defense is getting the most out of the little that they have. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, the defense really good. They've got Jared Verse, they got Braden Fisk, they got this and this and this and this. And I'm like, well, yeah, but they're also, piecing it together in the back end every year, and they're doing well with it. The offensive line is top notch.
They are.
And the offensive skill players are top notch. Puka, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, all those guys, super high hopes for this team, but it all depends on Matthew Stafford's health.
Mm-hmm. And they did start off slow last year. Remember, their entire offensive line went down. They lost both Cooper Kupp and Puka early in the season and had to weather the storm. They were 1-4 to start the year.
Kyron was terrible.
Yeah. And yet they still won the division.
Yeah.
So I could see them still starting out like playing 500 ball through 6 weeks because, they play Houston at Tennessee, Philly, Indy, San Francisco, at Baltimore. I think that's a 3-3 start.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to the bye after a Jacksonville-London game. And then it's just like they're off and running. So I don't really think it matters how it starts. If they do start off stronger, cool. But if Jimmy G has to play, who he's been playing really well in the preseason, he's not the reason that Devontae Adams hated the Raiders at the very end. It was the situation on top of that. He went there because of his college teammate, Derek Carr, and they abruptly moved off him. That was more so the reason, not because I hate Jimmy G and he sucks.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
And on top of that, Jimmy G, probably prematurely got benched also. I think it was week 2 when he was benched.
Early.
So either way, in a much better system with Sean McVay, I think that he could weather the storm to get them 500 if hypothetically Stafford had to miss the first month of the season. All that stuff. And then worth noting, Stinson Bennett, way back when, remember, 2-time college national champion with Georgia, missed most of the last year with mental health. I think he was dismissed from the team. He's apparently been a lot more active and played better in the preseason as well. So any of the 3 guys, I think no matter what, it's going to be, a 3-3, 4-2 start.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll just see where it goes. But they were the one team to really compete with Philly when Philly just was lights out, white hot last year, blowing out many of their opponents. They were the one team that were right there to steal one at the very end in the snow, and it didn't happen. But I think they're a dark horse right now.
Yeah, I have the Rams also winning this division. They were they split with the 49ers, but the 49ers went 3-3 and the Rams went 4-2. So they are going to win the division in this case. Let's go over to my AFC standings because we talked about the AFC starting. I have Denver at 1, Buffalo 2, winning their division. Baltimore winning their division, Jacksonville winning their division at 9-8, and then the Chargers, KC, and Cincinnati making it in. I do not have a tiebreaker to make the end of it, so that was pretty cool. I did have to figure out the tiebreaker between Buffalo and Baltimore, but Buffalo beats Baltimore week 1 in the head-to-head because we're all anticipating that game.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
So yeah,
no, pretty self-explanatory. We had 2 different or 3 different. 3 of the same division winners. One different was the AFC West.
Yes.
And I think you ended up having 3 Western teams go in.
I did.
Again, there wasn't many based on this having to do tiebreakers. Mine got a lot harder.
Yeah.
I think it's very self-explanatory. There's about 12 good to great teams in the AFC and then 4 just bottom feeders.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just kind of how they beat themselves up to get that final 2 spots.
Yeah, I forgot. I did have a tiebreaker between KC and Cincinnati. As you can see, it was a common games tiebreaker. KC won more common games than Cincinnati, so that's how they are above them. But let's go over to Cam's, and he can explain how his tiebreaker worked.
Yeah, bottom for us are very similar. I ended up putting the Raiders twice, even though they're, they go 7-10. But either way, top 7. The tiebreaker between the Chargers and the Patriots, I had to dig for because they had to go all the way down, and basically the Patriots edged them out on common games. It was really close though, and I think this kind of feels right of just getting a couple new playoff teams. That's 3 different ones in the AFC. That's usually you want to have 4 to 5 different playoff teams
Total,
every year. That's usually what happens. Baltimore won the division won the conference record to rest. I think I had them on the other side, 14-3. I switched it to 13-4 after realizing like, hey, they're just going to drop that last one, resting starters, quote unquote. So
right, sure.
Either way, they kind of run away with it. Kansas City, Buffalo close behind. Distant fourth is AFC South champ, and then a plethora of just really strong AFC wildcard contenders. I think there's 5 strong playoff contenders between Cincinnati, New England, Chargers, Broncos, and Houston. But other than that, I think it's a lot more of a clear picture in the AFC of the 9 teams that are vying for the 7 spots.
Have a chance to make it in for sure. On the NFC side, so my NFC picture is actually very, very complicated. Like I said, I had the Rams edging out the San Francisco 49ers, so that's both of them were 11-6, but I had 5 11-6 teams here. So a couple things to talk about. The 10-7 teams, because I had 4 of them also. How Chicago got in. Chicago beats Green Bay twice. I actually had them beating them both times. And then Arizona beats Tampa Bay in the head-to-head. And then Chicago was 7-5 in the division. Arizona was 6-6 in the division.
You mean via conference play?
Yeah, sorry, conference, yes. So that's how this all worked out. Yeah, it took me a while.
Yeah, I would like to look back in the record books if there's been this many teams in a conference with winning records that don't make the postseason, because you have 4.
4, right, I know, it was crazy.
I was like, that's crazy, but at the same time, the NFC is so hard because I truly believe, even though we'll talk about our Super Bowl predictions and our playoff brackets in a second, I think that there's a good possibility that there's just a completely out of nowhere team, and it could be any of the 11 that you mentioned. I think the only true ones that are just don't really have a chance at like a true contender. Like if Dallas or Seattle or Carolina makes the playoffs, we're not really surprised per se,
right?
But they're not going anywhere. They're just first round exits for whoever they play. But the other 11, I could see paths of Green Bay, Detroit, Tampa Bay, Arizona, all teams that you had missed in the postseason, winning a playoff game or even 2. So that's the complicated and fun part. And so if there are truly, 8 teams that are either 10 or 11 wins?
Yes.
Like that's just absolute chaos when it comes to
9 teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is chaos. I do want to fix something really quick because I didn't realize that I messed it up. But Atlanta, hold on, I'll just do it so y'all can see it as I do it. Atlanta is going to be the 4 seed. They lost both games to the Rams and Minnesota. Y'all can see me doing it, I think, currently. And then the Rams are going to be 3 seed. That was my bad.
Oh, okay.
Apologies. So how
that does truly matter when we get to the
it will matter. Yes.
Because I mean, like that's 2 very different matchups and stuff, and you could have different results based on who's playing who.
Right. So Minnesota had more common game wins. I actually wrote it all down, luckily, so that I had it all here ready to talk about, because otherwise I would have those backwards and messed up. So Minnesota had more common game wins than the Rams, and the Rams and Minnesota both beat Atlanta, but Atlanta happening to be in the NFC South found more wins in other places than the other 2 teams could, basically. Mm-hmm. But yeah, here is the crazy NFC for me. And for Cameron, he has a lot more pessimism. I had a lot of teams.
And it's not necessarily pessimism. It's just like, I think they're all 10 to 12 win teams. There's a lot of 10 to 12 win teams. And even though I do not have, 4 teams with winning records losing the division, that typically is not common. And you find ways to lose games and stuff like that. The one difference in terms of playoff teams, we actually had the same wild card teams. It was just Atlanta versus Tampa Bay when the division. Atlanta and Chicago, there was a tiebreaker. Chicago ended up winning more common games.
Gotcha.
And so at the end of the day, like that's how they got in with the last spot. Washington and San Francisco were shoe-ins, but San Francisco had the better conference record.
Okay.
And so we're just kind of getting into the nitty-gritty with it and just seeing how these teams go. The one that makes me the most nervous is Detroit, because I just think it's hilarious because Detroit, I've been so pessimistic on them taking a step back.
And
you were just like, I don't know about that. And then you had them going and missing the playoffs, and I have them win the division still.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things, but it's still fun to talk about.
Absolutely. So check it out. We're going to go over and check out my AFC side to start off. For my AFC side, I have the Broncos at 1, 13-4. We had said that. That's something.
What
was my bold
a
prediction.
first round that would be.
I just want to show you. Yes. No, I know.
Oh, wow.
So basically, because the Broncos made it, the 3 teams that you expect to be the 1 seed are going to be or 4 teams even, because most people have Cincinnati also as one of their favorites. They're going to be playing each other.
And the narratives are all there too.
No, it's great.
I mean, Jacksonville Chargers, even if you're like, oh, that's the worst of the bunch. Well, that one was the biggest comeback. That's the comeback. Kansas City, Baltimore recently played in the postseason with the AFC title game in 2023. Buffalo, Cincinnati, last time they played in the snow in the playoffs, Cincinnati went on the road
awesome
and beat them.
Game.
So,
and they're on the road.
Yeah,
in Buffalo. Can they do it again? I don't know. We'll see.
That fires me up right there.
Yeah, right. And then Baltimore, I think so. Let's go break them down. But for me, the reason I'm having I will have Buffalo moving on is because I think that they are the more talented team. I think that Cincinnati's defensive woes get them, and Buffalo finds a way. It's cold. It's home. They win at home, and that's what I expect here. But the next game, Baltimore and the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not kicking the Chiefs out yet. Baltimore is going to lose that game because they suck in the playoffs. They've consistently done it over and over and over. There's a hump. Not only is there one hump, you don't do well in the playoffs, but there's 2 humps. Now you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. Of course, it's at Baltimore and all that stuff, but Kansas City does better in the playoffs. Baltimore doesn't. That's why we have Kansas City moving on.
And like I said, with me, being more optimistic, and when I had them win the division, either way, they're going to finish the season strong. Yeah. So even if they start off slow, they're going to be hitting their stride at the right time. Whereas Baltimore is kind of like, we'll just kind of see, because they have a lot of cold games, division games towards the end of the year.
Right.
So, yeah, that's
Jacksonville versus the Chargers.
Round. Yeah.
We're going to say that the Chargers are going to move on.
Okay.
It has to do with the fact that I just think they're better. Jacksonville gets here on the back of playing in the AFC South, but the Chargers have more talent. I'm going to be having 3 AFC West teams in my second round, which is just something that is crazy to talk about.
But
they're deserving.
Yeah. I mean, if you rank the teams talent-wise in the top 5 of the AFC, 3 of them are AFC West teams.
Right.
And Cincinnati, even if you can believe in their quarterback, or Houston, they have holes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Top to bottom, like, it's okay to admit that.
Yeah, and then 2 of them are playing each other, up the top 5, which is Baltimore and Kansas City. So they just, that's how it worked out. The next round is going to be looking like this, because it's something that we love about the NFL. They put seeding based on your record in the regular season. Reseeding is great. So Kansas City and Denver play the first round in a rematch. I'm picking Kansas City. I think that, yes, Bo Nix and Sean Payton did a great job getting here, but talent and veteran playoff savvy is on the Kansas City side. Maybe the Broncos the next year have that.
Kansas City's had their number
exactly.
more than any other division team. Like, they've split some games with the Chargers when the Chargers have been healthy and good.
Right.
And the Raiders have gone in there and done damage and played closer based on what their records indicated. So Denver's the one that they just kind of roll over.
Yes.
Since Mahomes has been the quarterback. So it'll be such a tough, grueling thing if Denver just runs to the table and then just loses first game against I think that would be the worst outcome if they do go 1 seed. Like, if there's any team that they would not want to play, it's Kansas City. And it just happens to happen in this scenario.
Yeah, and then Buffalo is going to beat the Chargers, I think, in Buffalo. That's just a really tough game, going from the West Coast all the way to New York and having to deal with that cold. And we've seen Justin Herbert not play that well. I bet on Josh Allen over Justin Herbert basically at the end of the day.
Yeah, and with this year with Herbert, it all comes down to just, even if you don't even win a playoff game, just play well.
Yeah,
that's the monkey that you have to get off your back. It's just actually not being the reason that your team loses.
Sure.
I think I'd rather that be the thing than playing bad but winning a couple games and you Jimmy G your way into an AFC title game. I don't think that helps his cause, builds his narrative, or anything of that nature. So if he duels it out and he plays close, loses by a field goal to Buffalo on the road, like, there's no shame in that.
Yeah, and also they have the win over Jacksonville. Hopefully he can get over that hump.
Right, that's
the
it.
original hump. But yes, so we're gonna have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, of course.
Once again.
Of course.
Chapter 4, is that?
I just
in the postseason?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But this one is the big one for the AFC title, and I have the Buffalo Bills beating them. I think that the step back, Kansas City will take a step back. I think they beat Baltimore because of the Baltimore woes of just the playoffs, and then I think they're the better team when it comes to the end of the veteran style against Denver. But Buffalo is the first team where I'm like, hey, that team is better, and they have the coach, and they've been here. They're going to find a way. I believe in Buffalo to win this game.
Yeah, and
Tough.
Especially if it's in Buffalo, that helps their cause.
Yes.
They've just come so close. Like that they're not the Baltimore where Baltimore plays down and then just underwhelms based on where they were the favorites in those games. Buffalo has been the dog and has been dog throughout the game, and then just the 13-second game.
Yeah.
Last year, there's the QB sneak tush push that doesn't go, and then just lose it at the last second. Time and time again, they control Kansas City in the regular season, but they just can't get past them in the postseason. It's going to be a field goal game, and maybe just has to be you have to score 2 seconds left, not 13.
Yeah,
like
right.
That's really what it comes down to.
You gave him too much
So
time.
it's completely reasonable, and I'm on board with that. Such a fun. This whole playoff board would be absolutely must see TV for every single game.
Absolutely, I couldn't do it. Let's go over to yours.
Yeah. So mine's a little bit different, especially seating wise. Buffalo and Cincinnati at least have to play each other, but this time it's a 3 and 6.
Yeah.
I gave them the Buffalo the edge as well, just because they're the way more balanced team. Cincinnati can beat anybody on any given day, but they can also lose to anybody on any given day, and they would have by far, or I wouldn't say by far, because Jacksonville's defense isn't great either, but they would have the worst defense of any of these 7 teams.
Right.
And Buffalo has allegedly the best offense of these 7 teams. So give them the edge there. Kansas City over New England. Just one of those things. New England, you got there. Congratulations, first job. Step 1 complete.
Cool.
But it's big boys, and that is what it is.
Yeah.
So, and then with Jacksonville, Denver, that's a sneaky fun matchup.
Yeah,
I think I ended up giving Denver the win. Just trusting their defense more. Once again, Jacksonville, you win the division where you weren't expected to. You make the playoffs, you weren't expected to. That's a win in year 1 for Lynn Cohen and company. And Trevor actually having a bounce back year, I think would be a big deal. But Denver just has the edge at coach and defense, and I think that would be the difference in that matchup.
No, I like the direction that Jacksonville would be going in this situation, but I think Denver is definitely the more talented team. And then I think Buffalo Cincinnati is obviously going to be the best game in this first round. It's just, shootout, just fun, no defense on one side, and then cold game, the whole thing. And then you have Kansas City and New England. I think Kansas City obviously handles New England. I think that it's awesome that New England got there. Kind of like how I feel about Jacksonville winning the division.
Right.
I think mine was a little bit chalkier.
Your first round's more fun than mine. I will
sure.
Way more fun.
But let's go to the second round.
Second round. So
this one will be fun.
A little bit of flopping around. So Denver has to go on the road against Baltimore to make noise happen. That's the thing that makes me nervous. Is I think they're clearly becoming a top 4 team in that conference. But now in this scenario, you're an 11-win team. You got to go on the road against whoever the 1 seed is. In this case, it's the Baltimore Ravens. Just tough to see them getting past that. I'll say. And then Buffalo, Kansas City, your AFC title game, they have to play each other as the 2-3. I also have Buffalo winning. So similar thing where I had them sweeping Kansas City 2-0 this season.
When was the last time Kansas City didn't make the AFC Championship?
Before Mahomes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Like
they have never
right?
not been in
forever.
an AFC title game since Mahomes has been the starter in 2018.
Yeah, it feels like forever.
Exactly. So it was way back in 2017 in our college years when they were a thing. So, yeah, this would be a big thing. But at the same time, no harm, no foul, Kansas City. If this is truly the last of their true run,
right.
It's been a historical run of longevity, success, being at the top week in and week out. Their team this year, to me, is better than each of the last 2 years where they won and lost a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Buffalo has gotten even better. I think the gap has closed. And on top of that, the ball just can't keep on bouncing one team's way. and that's just kind of how we get the. It's kind of similar to how New England, a lot of the years where Tom Brady was constantly in the title game, their division was just so bad he by default defaulted into a first or second seed. This time, not only is there not a 2 seed getting a bye anymore, they also have the toughest, or one of the toughest division, clearly the toughest in the AFC.
Right, of course.
So that's just it's a whole bunch of elements that they just can't keep on sustaining this level of success, at least in the short term.
I want to say that looking at this, my only question is, considering it's in Kansas City, that makes me a little bit more worried about Buffalo winning. In my situation, Kansas City is going to Buffalo.
No,
it's a whole different world over there. But
believe me, I would be sweating bullets if that was my pick.
Sure.
Wouldn't bet that game, but
absolutely.
I just think the narrative and overcoming, all that stuff. They just played to the very end, and Buffalo, they're just on the wrong side 3 in a row. Can it be 4 in a row? I mean, they've lost 4 Super Bowls in a row, so that franchise is capable of losing something 4 straight times. But at the same time, I'm gonna ride with Buffalo now.
Fair enough. Completely, I get it. I obviously have Buffalo going all the way. So Baltimore and Buffalo is an absolute masterpiece of a game. Start the year.
Any combination of those 4 teams in the AFC title game will be awesome football to watch.
Yes.
I ended up picking Buffalo. I'm riding with them. I trust them more. I was surprised that Baltimore made it all the way, but at the same time, when you are the ones you get the bye and then also get Denver, which is clearly the 4th team of this scenario, I would feel differently. If Baltimore had to play Kansas City or Buffalo, I would have picked them in the divisional round.
Sure.
So just worth noting. But they get there. Hopefully, it would be a fun game, and we can see just 2 legendary quarterbacks, back-to-back MVPs between Lamar and Josh Allen, just duke it out for finally to get over the hump and get to the Super Bowl.
So my biggest complaint about this whole thing is Buffalo has to play the Bengals, they have to play the Chiefs, and they have to play Baltimore to get there. That is a gauntlet. Yeah. My gosh. Okay. No. Well, I think Buffalo is absolutely good enough, to say the least.
Yeah, and also one thing I want to mention, I think that just any scenario of these matchups, unless there's an absolute shock, that is this year's Super Bowl to me. That's how I view this season. Yeah. It's just AFC team wins, and I think, you can put Philly in the conversation of the top 4 most talented teams with obviously Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo. But if any of those combinations go into the AFC title game, I think in terms of just the watchability of it and the matchup, I think it would just be much more appetizing and attractive than whoever comes out of the NFC, unless it is Philly, which I may or may not see happening.
Sure. Well, how about I run down my NFC situation? Yeah. I think that I think these are fun matchups too. Because what we start off with is Minnesota and Chicago. We're playing the NFC North game, and so I think that's a very interesting game to be talking about. And then if you look down, you have the Rams and Washington. Rams are the team that almost beat Philly last year, and then Washington gets just kind of smacked by them. So I think that's interesting. And then you go down to the last one. This is the lowest group, basically, in my opinion. You have San Francisco who creeps in, and you have Atlanta who, gets there because they're in the worst division. So interesting little football, but I'm going to be going with, let's start at the bottom. I'm going to take the Falcons. I think they're more talented. I think San Francisco gets there because of their schedule. They're lucky, basically, at the end of the day. The next one, I'm going to take the Rams because if Matthew Stafford is healthy, I believe in him as a quarterback, and I believe in this team. I think Washington is getting a little bit worse, but they're still a 6th seed in our situation here, so I think the Rams beat them. And then Minnesota and the Bears. I have the Bears winning the first round against Minnesota. They split during the regular season. This will be at Minnesota, but Minnesota in the playoffs last year in the first game fell apart. I know that was a Sam Darnold-led team, but it's a lot of the same players, and I think that the Bears and Ben Johnson get over that hump.
Yeah. Honestly, just wishful thinking as a football fan. I wish that San Francisco wasn't the 5 just so that we didn't have to have either Atlanta or San Francisco move on.
Sure.
But because at the end of the day, I think you would agree that those are the 2 worst teams if you had to just power rank 1 through 7.
I think
and they just happen to have to play each other. Yeah. And sometimes teams just look into that, but just wishful thinking to who goes to the next round. I wish it wasn't them. I actually think I would side with Minnesota in the scenario of home game as against Chicago, but I completely understand your reason.
It's going to be a very close line game, probably -3 to the Vikings side at that situation. But if you looked at it, they were very close in the regular season. The Bears actually have a harder schedule overall than the Vikings, so it's just a close game. I think that I picked the Bears because I want to see them succeed. Maybe I'm a little biased on that one, But then they play the Eagles in the next round. I think that kind of is where it ends. They're going to be going to Philadelphia. It's going to be a completely different environment. I think you're happy if you're the Bears if you make the playoffs, not if you go to the NFC Championship. You know what I mean? And I think the Eagles are obviously a team that's like, we're going to the Super Bowl, we're going to win it again.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I'm at with them. And then we just said it, Atlanta is down there as truly the sixth best team on this board, and the Rams are going to beat them. They are the better NFC West team between them and San Francisco.
I mean, comparing each conference's divisional round, like a lot less exciting matchups.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of a clear path. I think I know exactly where you're going with these picks. That's just kind of Atlanta or San Fran falling into it. And then Chicago, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
I think they exceeded expectation to that point.
And then the Rams, of course, they actually get probably the easiest road.
Yes.
Out of the group, because they are the 3 seed, they get to beat. Even if they were, even if Minnesota, like you said earlier, had won, the Falcons would be playing the Eagles, not the Rams. So the Rams kind of stay away from the Eagles until this point,
which is good
for the most part. And as you can see, they're going to play. I'm going to be going with the Eagles. I know that the game was so close last year. I was really on the fence on this game. I think that this game is going to be the most tantalizing game in the NFC. When this happens, because I believe that it should happen as long as we have a healthy Stafford and stuff like that. But I think the Eagles end up being too good, and they are the winning side for me.
No, I like the board that you have. Obviously, I'll have a little bit of things differently. I think our NFC was a little bit more jumbled than the AFC was.
You're Detroit.
Yeah. So we'll just I'd say let's get on over, and I'll walk you through how I go. So Philly, also the 1 seed. Chicago being the 7, but they have to play the Rams.
Yeah.
That's tough. Washington and the Lions, I think, is a sneaky fun one. Obviously, a rematch of the divisional round last year. Tampa Bay, San Francisco. Again, San Francisco gets to default into playing the worst divisional opponent. However, I think that it's a tough matchup for them, I would say. So similar to you, NFC South team beats San Francisco, having Tampa Bay overcome the 49ers. So after the NFC South and Tampa Bay moving on, I actually don't think that Detroit gets their lick back. I think the Commanders go on the road once again and take out Detroit. I'm not excited about Detroit at all this year. And I know I had them win the division, but I just think that they're thinner and thinner in the spots that they shouldn't be. And I'm going to rely on Washington kind of getting back to where they wanted to be. And then the Rams kind of, similar to what I said with Chicago. Chicago, you make the playoffs like that, you exceeded expectations. And I think that was a great first start for Ben Johnson. I have a lot of the first-year head coaches making the postseason, Liam Cohen, Mike Vrabel, and now Ben Johnson. So pretty self-explanatory first round, and then we'll just jump over to the second.
Bang. Get a
rematch for both. So you got you had the Philly and the Commanders, Rams and Bucks, way back when. That was a couple years ago, actually. But Philly, Commanders, I just think that Philly is going to continue winning against the Commanders. I can't pick Washington in the head-to-head. I don't think it was close last year. They did steal one game in the regular season. I have them splitting again this year. But I just think top to bottom, they're the more talented team, and they get the job done. The Rams, meanwhile, against Tampa, protect home field. They get back to have a rematch similar to what you had, the same NFC title game, which will be Philly and the Los Angeles Rams. But I'm on the other side.
Okay.
I actually picked the Rams to beat the Eagles. Again, on paper, it's not going to make sense. They're going to be dogs going into that game. Call it gut feeling, call vibes, whatever you want. I just don't see Philly repeating as NFC champions for the third time in the last 4 seasons. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I just have the feeling that I'd rather take the field. I can see a lot of NFC teams just somehow catching fire and getting the right way. But the Rams, to me, match up best with Philly. So if Philly made it to the NFC title game, they had the best puncher's chance, and they get a couple of punches to knock themselves back into Super Bowl.
Sure. I think that just looking across this, obviously with the Rams, and I had them obviously fighting Philly in the finals also in the NFC. They were the closest thing to winning a game in the playoffs against Philly last year. Even with Kansas City, all of them. So I think that if someone is going to do it, it's the Rams. I think I completely agree with you that would be the team that could do it. I think it's Washington.
If it makes sense, I think if each team comes with their best game, like their A game, I think the Rams are the only team capable of knocking them off. But Philly can play down to and lose to a lot of teams.
Sure.
But it's going to be more so they just shit the bed similar to 2 years ago than it would be the other team just outplaying them top to bottom and stuff like that. It'll be something similar.
The only team that I would say could is Detroit. Detroit has the talent, I think, to be able to play with them. But at the same time, it's just they don't have the coaching staff that we were as comfortable with. So I completely get where you're coming from, though. I think Detroit is the only other one other than the Rams.
And then even in this scenario, like Detroit winning would be flip everything, but Detroit wouldn't even have to play until
they would have to get through LA.
Yeah, they'd have to go through LA. So another tough path for them to go through, kind of similar to what Buffalo did, and I trust Buffalo more than I do Detroit.
Sure.
At this point.
Let's go over. This is what our Super Bowl championship looks like. I have the Philadelphia Eagles. You have the Rams. They're going to play together against the Bills, as you can see. But at the end of the day, in my matchup, Buffalo versus the Eagles, I think that Buffalo has the better quarterback, more talented, not more talented anywhere actually, but more talent of like coaching. I don't like Nick Sirianni, sorry. But I think they have like the formula. Like they're not better on paper. They're probably going to be dogs. It doesn't matter. Similar to you and the Rams on the last slide. Like I just feel like they've got the formula to win games, and they go through a gauntlet. They play in the AFC. They deal with it. They're going to be ready to play in the Super Bowl. Finally, I don't think there's going to be that. I don't think Josh Allen is going to be that nervous. Like I made the Super Bowl. I'm not going to be as good. He is one of those guys that I think can really just put it on and turn on when he needs to. And I think he beats the Philadelphia Eagles. So I have the Bills winning.
Yeah, I at least, and I have Buffalo winning as well, just different NFC representative, like you said. Again, I said earlier, I think whoever the AFC title winner wins it all. So whether it's Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo, if it's one of those three, if it's a Denver or somebody else kind of finding a way to get there, I think it's a little bit of a unknown because it would probably be them versus a team that is favored over them. So, very fun thing to talk about. NFC, I'm very nervous about because I don't really love how my playoffs came together, and I don't know how something needs to. Basically, I'm trying to manufacture a result without knowing how it's going to happen. That's kind of how I feel with Philly getting to the 1 seed, but I say that I bet the field to make the Super Bowl, but I don't know who it's going to be, what that path is. There could be injuries that knock them down too, or Washington just stays good and then forces Philly to go on the road. Maybe that's the path. I don't really have the painted picture of it, but that's just kind of the route that I'm going.
Well, they might run into a team like Minnesota last year. Minnesota might actually go, 14-3, win the division instead of being the team that lost the division.
Right.
And they're actually, like there's going to be. I had Minnesota with 6-11 last year. Like there's going to be a team that outperforms and that it hits their stride at the right time. I just don't know who it is. I have the Eagles going to the championship because I'm most comfortable with them, but I don't disagree that the NFL does crazy things.
Yes, sure. Let
me stop sharing. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. That was a long video, and we know that, but we went through every division. We went through every scenario that we came up with. We broke down every single schedule, record, and thing that we could going into the season. So very exciting. We both have the Buffalo Bills winning the championship. Obviously, there are 31 other teams, and that does not have to happen, and there could be some crazy things that happen, but I'm really happy with how it all worked out.
No, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Like we said, we don't just throw a random record out there. We pick wins and losses for every single game in the schedule. We look at bye weeks, we look at neutral sites, environments, trends, short weeks, all that stuff, and it matters in the NFL because literally every most spreads are 3 points or less.
Yeah.
And so, like, all these games, you're considered a great picker of games if you go 12-4 in every week. And most people don't do that. So nothing's going to be perfect. And so sometimes it's going to be like, hey, I just think they go 1-1 against these two teams, and I don't know how it's going to work out. So
Sure.
It's just one of those things, but we appreciate you guys tuning in. We want to hear what your predictions are for this 2025 season. Who's your ride or die to go to the Super Bowl? Who's your dark horse? Who are teams that you think you might be expecting to underwhelm? We kind of want to discuss with you guys on all your thoughts on that, and tell us where we were wrong or right or bold or whatever. I want to hear it all.
Yeah, absolutely. But we really appreciate y'all hanging out with us for all the time that y'all did. And we'll see y'all on the next one.